Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you, and welcome, welcome, welcome to the White House. I want to thank the Marine Band, who always does such a wonderful job, the President's own band, and I just learned as I was walking in that today is John Philip Sousa's birthday. So this is a stirring event in every possible way. Thank you all. We are so grateful for this day and for what it means for our country. I know all of us can remember, those of us old enough can remember, seeing the faces of the Little Rock Nine as they courageously walked up the steps of Central High School, escorted by soldiers from the 101st Airborne. I was a girl living in Chicago, and I had never seen anything like it in my life. I will never forget the look on these brave men and women's faces as they withstood the taunts and the threats so that they could live and learn as any American child was entitled to do. Reflecting on that day, Melba Patillo Beals wrote that they were determined to cross, quote, the threshold into that place where angry segregationist mobs had forbidden us to go. And they did. And they did it not only for themselves, but they did it for every child in America. Today, a grateful nation welcomes all of you to the White House. Your story and what it says about our highest ideals and our tragic failings as a nation will live forever. What your story tells us about the ugly forces of bigotry and the human spirit ability to defy those forces is America's story, and it's one we need to be constantly reminded of. Today, we ensure that it will be told and retold, learned and relearned, and never, ever forgotten. As part of the White House Millennium Program, the President and I and the administration and Congress, and we hope the entire country, have made a commitment to save historic sites like this one so that our children and our children's children will always know the sacrifices that were made to give us the blessings we enjoy today. When children visit the National Historic Site at Little Rock Central High School, they will hear the story of America's continuing struggle to live up to our most sacred promises, to make sure that all men and women are really equal under the law and in the eyes of each other, to make sure that every child really can walk through the doors of a good public school and walk out with the confidence and ability to reach his or her God-given potential. We hope that the children who visit the Central High School site will also learn about the power that they as citizens have to make change possible. They will hear and see the images that we cannot forget from the time we saw them. They will see the people who supported the Little Rock Nine, the Women's Emergency Committee, ladies in white gloves and hats with children tugging at their skirts. They will see the faces of men and women, white and black, who withstood the threats and the taunts themselves to stand up for what was right. And they will hear about the leaders of that time, leaders like our friend Dale Bumpers, who stood up to the forces of bigotry and spoke out for justice and equality in Arkansas and America, just as he has done ever since. In a speech a few weeks ago, Senator Bumpers outlined the simple test he always uses when deciding how to vote in the Senate. We're going to miss him when he leaves the Senate, and I hope that one of his lasting legacies is that all the members of Congress will use this same test, namely, how will my children and grandchildren judge me? He has met and continues to meet that test every day of his remarkable career and life. It was Senator Bumpers who helped to successfully integrate the schools in his hometown of Charleston, Arkansas, the very first community in the old Confederacy to do so after Brown v. Board of Education. It was Senator Bumpers who defeated Orville Faubus, closing a dark chapter in Arkansas history and American history. It was Senator Bumpers who wrote the bill the President will sign today, making Little Rock Central High School an historic site. And it was Senator Bumpers who, along with Congressman Benny Thompson in the House, worked to ensure that the Little Rock Nine will receive congressional gold medals. What an extraordinary way to end a career. And so it is my great honor to introduce a friend, a voice for children, and a voice for those too often forgotten, a leader of courage and commitment, the Senator from Arkansas, Dale Bumpers.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Hillary, thank you very much for those overly generous and kind words. I don't know of anybody, including the President of the United States, I had rather introduce me than Hillary Clinton. She has been one of the dearest friends, one of the most noble, dignified women I have ever known. She has brought so much. President Clinton, Congressman Thompson, and especially our distinguished honorees this morning. There are a number of people in this audience who do not remember the very ominous, violent, and threatening events that took place at Little Rock Central High School in September of 1957. The very foundation of our legal, political, and social systems were threatened. It's a haunting picture, indelibly ingrained in my memory, of the chaos and the virtual anarchy that reigned at Central High. I was frightened too, Ernie, because I was from the town of Charleston, as Hillary just told you, which had very quietly integrated its schools in August of 1957 following the May 4th Brown versus Board of Education decision in May of the same year. And as I watched the events unfold in Little Rock, I was frightened because I thought I knew what was going to happen to Charleston. I knew we were headed for trouble, and sure enough, we were. I was so immensely relieved to see news clips of the 101st Airborne rolling into Little Rock. I didn't know what the courts would decide, but I knew the 101st would restore order, and order is the first requisite of a civilized society. I especially remember the scenes of the Little Rock 9 children, terror showing in their faces, being escorted into Central High, while enduring the taunts, the jeers, the threats, and yes, the denigration of their color and their race. And so when Benny Thompson called my office to ask me to handle this bill in the Senate, I was dismayed and chagrined that I hadn't thought of it first. I happily introduced the bill in the Senate, and it turned out to be one of the most difficult bills I ever handled. Not because of objections, quite the contrary. It was immensely popular, with over 300 co-sponsors in the House and over 50 in the Senate. Everybody wanted to tack something onto it because they knew the bill was popular and would pass, and they certainly knew that President Clinton would sign it. But it went back and forth with all the different things that people could attach to it. And finally, it was apparent that the bill was dead. And it occurred to me, no, it occurred to Rich Glick, my chief counsel, that I might get Senators Stevens and Byrd, who were orchestrating that gigantic 40-pound omnibus appropriation bill carving up $550 billion. It occurred to Rich, and he told me, we had one last chance to get the bill passed. They could slip it into that bill and nobody would ever know it. And Mr. President, on a point of personal privilege at this point, I want to introduce two people. One, Rich Glick. Where are you, Rich? Who shepherded this bill for one solid year with the most unstinting, tireless efforts I've ever seen. And secondly, I want to introduce another man whose idea it was to make Little Rock Central High School a national historic site, Rhett Tucker from Little Rock, Arkansas. Now that I'm not running again, I'm happy to give everybody else some credit. So today we're finally assembled to honor the only civil rights recipients of the 200 people who have received the Congressional Gold Medal, with one exception, I believe Leroy Collins. The bravery of these people who are seated behind me and the two who are not is legendary. Even those who jeered that day have since said they were moved by the courage of these 9 children. They were the 9 people who endured so much pain to prove that diversity would make us a greater nation, that the freedoms granted in the Constitution are not just for some of us. And as Hubert Humphrey used to say quite frequently, this will never be a good place for any of us to live until it's a good place for all of us to live. I'm deeply honored to have played this small role in making this day possible, when this nation could partially atone for its past and repay them for their heroism. Last September, President Clinton symbolically held open the doors of Central High School when he went there for the 40th anniversary. And we should use this occasion to renew our commitment to never again allow the doors, any doors, of opportunity and freedom to be closed to a single American citizen. And now is my privilege to introduce to you a truly great congressman from the state of Mississippi, whose idea it was in the first place to honor these 9 children, Benny Thompson.
Thank you, Senator. President Clinton, Mrs. Clinton, Congressman Meeks, Congressman Cummings, all of you who've come to celebrate this historic event today. First, allow me to say thank you to Senator Bumpers for showing the initiative and the foresight to spearhead this legislation in the Senate. Although we will miss you, I'm sure everyone here is pleased to hear the wise people of Arkansas have elected to send another Democrat to the United States Senate. When I introduced H.R. 2560, a bill to award the Congressional Gold Medal to the LR9 in the House, my intentions were to give them long overdue recognition for being an invaluable national asset and for the historically significant contributions they have made to haul America kicking and screaming out of the abyss of racial segregation and into the light of unity and equality. In 1874, James Thomas Rapier, a black member of the U.S. House of Representatives from Alabama during Reconstruction, said, "I'm a good American. The colored people are good people. The valor of colored people was tested on many battlefields, and today their bones lie bleaching beside every hill and every valley from the Potomac to the Gulf." In 1957, the battlefield was Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, and a war was being fought to force this nation, our nation, to recognize the most basic civil rights of all its citizens. In that one brief, fleeting moment, when our minds tell us to turn and run, and our hearts demand that we stay and fight, 9 African-American youth walked into Central High School and stepped onto one of the civil rights movement's most explosive battlefields. In that brief, fleeting moment, they eclipsed the innocence of youth and became warriors in a battle to impress upon this country's social consciousness a reminder that America can only be one nation under God if we stand together, indivisible. Sometimes we're not aware of the enormous amount of courage we all have within ourselves, and it takes a monumental, life-altering event to force that courage through years of being taught to take the safe, cautious path. Once it does rise to the surface, we are forced to deal with the fact that courage is not an emotion of conscience. It is a fire-like element in our souls that grabbed hold of 9 teenage students and forced them to become heroes. Now it's my pleasure to introduce a man who was one of those 9 African-American teenagers who displayed a lifetime of courage for one fall day in 1957. Along with other 8 members of the Little Rock Nine, Ernie Green became dedicated his life for being an advocate of civil rights for all Americans. He is living proof that once recognized, courage is a way of life, an immovable force in the battle for justice and equality. Mr. Ernie Green.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President, Madam First Lady, Senator Bumpers, Congressman Thompson, the other distinguished members of the Congress. I am honored to be able to speak for the 9 of us. I'd like to take this time to point out that none of us expected this to occur in September 1957. We simply thought we were doing the right thing and that it was our duty as students in Little Rock to try to advance and receive the best education available. It was also a testament to our parents, who probably knew more than we would ever know the difference between the American reality and the American dream. They put their lives, their property, their jobs, their own existence on the line for a belief in the American ideal. And because of that, Elizabeth, Carlotta, Minnie Jean, Gloria, Melba, Thelma, Jefferson, and Terrence, and me, we thank each of you for standing with us. It was because you, the people of this country, quiet voices, had made this more than just an individual effort for us in Little Rock, but it became a movement that demonstrated itself last Tuesday, that showed that we as a country, not just as a group of people, can advance ideas and ideals. It is what I believe, is what I tell my daughter Mackenzie, who's 10, that this is a country built on ideals, and it only moves because individual effort by individual people that will step forward advance it. Now, I have the great task of introducing a gentleman who I have the utmost respect for. I think both his policies, his position, his attitude has advanced the question of racial equality enormously in this country. It is because of the work that he did as governor in Arkansas in 1987. He recognized us as a group. He came back last year and opened the doors symbolically for us. And I think it demonstrates to the country that when leadership plays the statesman role, advances the belief that all Americans are equal, we all benefit from it. It is really my function, my duty, to present to you the President of the United States, my friend William Jefferson Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, when Ernie was up here introducing me, I remembered that he was the only senior among the Little Rock Nine. He graduated in the spring of 1958, and when they called him up to receive his diploma, the whole auditorium was quiet. Not a single person clapped. But we're all clapping you today, buddy. And we thank you. I would like to thank all the members of the Little Rock Nine who are here, including Elizabeth Eckford, Carlotta Lanier, Jefferson Thomas, Minnie Jean Trickey, Terrence Roberts. Melba Patillo Beals is not here. Gloria Way Carmark is not here. Thelma Mothershed Ware is not here. But I think we should give all of them another hand for being here. I would like to thank Congressman Elijah Cummings, Congressman Gregory Meeks for coming, Mayor Woodrow Stanley of Flint, Michigan, Commissioner Edna Bell, the President of the National Association of Black County Officials from Wayne County, Michigan. I'd like to thank and welcome the Mayor-elect of Washington, D.C., Anthony Williams here. Told him I'd be for more federal aid if he'd teach me how to tie a bow tie. I never learned how to do that. I would like to thank Secretary of Transportation Rodney Slater and the Secretary of the Interior Bruce Babbitt for their presence and their leadership. And I would like to say a special word of welcome and profound appreciation for his historic role in Tuesday's historic turnout of voters to Reverend Jesse Jackson. Welcome, sir. We're delighted to have you here. Thank you. I thank the United States Marine Band, as always, for their great performance on the occasion of John Philip Sousa's birth anniversary. And let me say a special word of welcome again to the White House
to the magnificent young people of the Eastern High School Choir in Washington, D.C. Thank you. Let me say, since we are here to talk about our reconciliation, I hope you will forgive me for taking just a moment, and I know I speak for all Americans who are here, to express my sympathy to the people of Israel who this morning were once again the target of a vicious terrorist attack. No nation should live under the threat of violence and terror that they live under every day. When Prime Minister Netanyahu and Chairman Arafat signed the Wye River Agreement, they knew they would face this moment. They knew when they went home, both of them would be under more danger, and the terrorists would target innocent civilians. They knew they would have to muster a lot of courage in their people to stick to the path of peace in the face of repeated acts of provocation. There are some people, you know, who have a big stake in the continuing misery and hatred in the Middle East, and indeed everywhere else in this whole world. Just like some people had a big stake in continuing it in Little Rock over 40 years ago. I ask for your prayers and support today for the Israelis and the Palestinians who believe in this agreement and who are determined to carry out their responsibilities and who understand that the agreement is the best way to protect the safety of the Israeli people. It was tenaciously negotiated, hard fought, but it is the best way to safety for the Israelis, the best way to achieve the aspirations of the Palestinians, and in the end, the only answer to today's act of criminal terror. I hope you will all feel that in your heart. Let me say this is a very, very happy day for the people who were part of the Little Rock 9 experience, for the people of Little Rock, all the Arkansans who are here, African Americans from throughout our country. There was an earlier reference made by Congressman Benny Thompson, and I thank him for his outstanding leadership in this endeavor and for his fine remarks today about the election. Now, most of the publicity about the election has been the enormous turnout of African American citizens in a midterm election that resulted in the victories that have been well publicized for non-African American elected officials. And having been one of those on several occasions, I am immensely grateful. But what has received less publicity that I would like to point out, because this too was a part of the road that the Little Rock 9 began to walk for us, is that on Tuesday in the state of Georgia, an African American was elected the Attorney General of the state. An African American was elected the Labor Commissioner of the state. And in the South on Tuesday, African American congressmen were re-elected in majority white districts with large majorities. Large majority. That is a part of the road we have walked together, a part of what we celebrate today. There's so many here who played a role in it. One more person I would be remiss if I did not recognize that Hillary and I love so much and are so grateful to is wonderful Dr. Dorothy Height, Chairman of the National Council of Negro Women. Thank you for being here, Dorothy. Let's give her a big hand. Thank you and bless you. Ladies and gentlemen, there is only one bittersweet element in this magnificent moment for Hillary and for me, and that is that we are celebrating the last piece of legislation passed by our good friend Dale Bumpers. We have walked a lot of steps together since I first met Dale Bumpers about 25 years ago when he was governor. And we've had a lot of laughs at each other's expense. After I became president, just to make sure that I didn't get the big head, he went around Washington introducing me to people as the second best governor Arkansas ever had. Today, I told him that I hadn't had much time to review my remarks, and therefore I hadn't had the opportunity to delete all the nice things that had been written for me to say about him. But I do want to tell you that this is a truly astonishing public servant. Hillary and I admire him, admire his wife Betty, admire the things that he stood for and that she stood for, and we will miss them. Last month, in a final and, as always, brilliant speech on the Senate floor, Dale mentioned an inspiring teacher who once stopped him when he was reading out loud and said to the whole class, "Doesn't he have a nice voice?" Wouldn't it be tragic if he didn't use that talent? I think it's fair to say that Dale Bumpers has done his teacher proud. Because he used that eloquent, impassioned voice to make sure that all the children of his state and our nation could make use of their God-given talents. We owe him an enormous debt of gratitude for his nearly 5 decades of caring, often courageous public service, and I cannot thank him enough. The bill that Senator Bumpers and Congressman Thompson have presented to me for signature today recognizes the courage of the Little Rock Nine and that of their parents, their leaders, their community leaders, especially our great friend Daisy Bates, who could not be here today. Because of all of them, Central High has become a hallowed place, a place every bit as sacred as Gettysburg and Independence Hall. Interestingly enough, back in the 1920s, it was voted the most beautiful school in America. It is still a functioning school, very much so. There are some years when its students comprise 25% of our state's entire roster of National Merit Scholars. It's a place where children can still go and study Greek and Latin, something that's rare in all schools districts throughout America. It is, I believe, about to become the only open, fully operating school that is a National Historic Site. As Ernie said, Hillary and I welcomed the Little Rock Nine back to Little Rock on the 30th anniversary of the integration of Little Rock Central High School. Then I was profoundly honored to hold open the door of the school so they could walk through on the 40th anniversary. Today, I was able to welcome them all to the White House, to the Oval Office, and now on the South Lawn. On the fateful day they slipped into Central High School and were removed by the police, President Eisenhower was on vacation in Newport. When he learned what had happened to them and that Governor Faubus had turned over the streets to the mob, he realized that even as a conservative, the federal government had to act. The next day, he flew back to the White House. His helicopter landed just a few steps from here. He had just ordered General Maxwell Taylor to put the might of the 101st Airborne Division behind their righteous march through the doors of Central High. Now, thanks to Senator Bumpers and Congressman Thompson and many others, as they said, our nation has found 2 very fitting ways to honor that march to ensure that the memory of the Little Rock Nine and all they represent remains alive long after those of us with living memories are gone. As part of the budget I signed 2 weeks ago, I was authorized to confer congressional gold medals the highest civilian honor the Congress can bestow on each and every member of the Little Rock Nine. It was only a few months ago that we presented President Nelson Mandela with that same award, and he spoke so movingly of his long struggle to tear down the walls of apartheid. The Little Rock Nine broke through the doors of apartheid. I can't wait until the artists finish creating your medals and we can bestow them upon you, an honor you richly deserve. And then, of course, the main reason we're here today is to make a living monument forever out of the setting of your struggle. Again, I thank Senator Bumpers and all others. The bill will allow the National Park Service to work with the community to maintain and protect Central High's magnificent building. It will also allow the Park Service to start acquiring land in the surrounding neighborhood to create new facilities where people can learn about the origins and the aftermath of the 1957 crisis, topics that simply can't be fully explored in the existing visitor center's limited space. Children will never fully understand what you experienced in 1957. Maybe that's not such a bad thing, but they need to know. And now, for all time to come, children will have an opportunity to walk the stairs you walked, to see the angry faces you braved, to learn of your sacrifice and about what, as a result of your sacrifice, you, your fellow Arkansans, and your nation have become. Perhaps they will even see what it was about the Little Rock confrontation that made racial equality a driving obsession for so many of us who were young at the time and seared by it. Again, I want to thank you for staying together over these 40-plus years now, for being willing to show up and be counted and to remind us, to showing us the shining example of your lives so that we can never forget all those who went before you, who never had the chance that you gave to all who came after. Monuments and medals are important reminders of how far we have come, but it is not enough. The doors of our schools are open, but some of them are falling off their rusty hinges, and many of them are failing the students inside. The economy has never been stronger, but there are still striking disparities in jobs, in investments in neighborhoods, in education, in criminal justice. Still too many break down along what W.E.B. Du Bois first called the color line. And while the Little Rock Nine have enjoyed great success in business, in the media, and education, they can tell you that in spite of what we celebrated on Tuesday, there is still discrimination and hatred in the hearts of some Americans. All of that we found in our presidential initiative on race. And we must never forget that as our continuing obligation to the Little Rock Nine and all others who brought us to this point to fight this battle. The last point I want to make to you is that the face of America is changing and changing fast. I went to an elementary school last Saturday to talk about the need to build and modernize our schools. There were children from 24 nations there. The principal said, "Mr. President, we're so glad to have you here, and we've got all the parents here. I only wish that we could have translated your talk into Spanish and Arabic." America is changing, and it is a good thing if we remember to live by the ideals on which this country was founded, if we remember the sacrifices of the Little Rock Nine, if we listen to our teachers like Dr. John Hope Franklin, we, in other words, have a whole new chapter in the nation's march to equality, to right. Remember what Senator Bumper's teacher said. Wouldn't it be tragic if he didn't use that talent? That's exactly what the struggle for one America is all about, because that is a question that should be asked of every single child in our country. When we ask that question with the Little Rock 9 in mind, it helps us to keep our eyes on the prize of true equality, true freedom, that ever elusive, always worth seeking, more perfect union. These people that we honor today, in the school we save today for all time, have given us all a great and treasured gift. May God bless them and the United States. Thank you very much.
United States.